welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. We are so excited to give you a behind-the-scenes look at this year's NBJ Summit. So I am joined by my co-chair and founder of the Summit and NBJ Managing Director of Nutrition Business Advisors, Tom Aarts. Tom, welcome.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad we're doing this.
Oh, I am too. Good to see you as well. Also, I have Rick Polito, who is Editor-in-Chief of NBJ. Hello, Rick.
Good morning, Jessica. Great to be here and just open up the conversation that we're going to have at NBJ Summit with this morning. It's the introduction.
Yeah. Lots to chat about. And finally, we have our special guest, Dr. Pamela Peeke, MD, who is the founder and CEO of Peak Performance Center for Healthy Living. Dr. Peeke, thank you so much. We are delighted to have you here today. And also, you will be one of our featured speakers at the summit this year. So thank you.
I'm so happy to be here to support all of your efforts. This is wonderful.
Well, we have an all-star lineup, as everyone can see. And what we really wanted to do is talk about the summit for this year, answer questions. If you have any questions about the summit overall, how to get involved, please do pop them in the chat. Also, we'll be sharing the link to our full agenda so you can see all of the programming that we have coming up for the summit at the end of July and really give you an insider look. So let's start with that. Tom, you are no stranger to the summit. You have been the leader behind this event for so many years. So for those who aren't familiar with the NBJ Summit, can you provide us with a bit of an overview? What is it and why is it so important for the nutrition and supplement industry?
Sure. Thank you, Jessica. First of all, NBJ is Nutrition Business Journal, and I was the co-founder of that many, many years ago, back in 1996, which puts me in an age I don't want to discuss. And we've been doing this for a long time. This is our 27th year. And the way this originated was from NBJ, which Rick is the editor of now and has taken the reins and done a fantastic job. We talk about the trends and the hot topics and what's going on behind the scenes, and we do market analysis. And NBJ is sort of known as the journal of record for the business part of the industry. Some people call it the Wall Street Journal of the nutrition industry. And so we're big inside this, $60 billion supplement industry, which is attached to this $300 billion nutrition industry. So years ago, when we're writing to all these CEOs, we should get together in person and have a CEO event. And there was no really C-level executive event in the industry. There was Expo West and all the New Hope events, but there was no place where the leaders could gather in a smaller venue where they could talk about the future of their businesses, the future of the industry. So we used NBJ research and data and had our first event back in 1998. And we learned a lot of things. And since then, the summit's gotten much bigger and more refined, but we've capped it at 400 people. And we have about 280 to 300 CEOs and C-level executives and sponsors and all leaders in the industry. And the purpose, in a nutshell, I always say every year, I put our mission up, is to share information about the future of the industry, to grow the industry together. One of our philosophies is that we're in a growing pie and that we want to help each other, and that, we might have arch competitors in the room, but in our industry, we've all been doing well. So we sort of look at helping suppliers grow their businesses, help brands grow their businesses. And we have this collegial kind of, grow the pie mentality at this event. And so that's our purpose. And the CEOs walk away with great data, great networking. Sometimes deals are done. Sometimes they learn stuff about their businesses, and we have a great content lineup, as you know. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, thank you so much, Tom. And I do want to emphasize it really is a magical event when you get the right people in the room. I've been going to NBJ Summit for many years. This will be my first year as co-chair. So I'm, of course, very, very excited about the curation of getting leaders who are truly driving change in the supplement and nutrition industry together, talking about some of the key issues that are top of mind. This year is a special year because it is a big anniversary for DSHEA, so everyone's talking about that, but The theme of this year's event is Empowered Leadership, Illuminating the Path from Foundation to Future. So what we really wanted to do with that was be able to honor the legacy of the dietary supplement industry, but really talk about what does this strong foundation mean for the next 30 years. So we have a lot of really exciting content around innovation and maintaining the integrity of the industry amidst all of these changes. So Tom, what are some of the things that you're excited about this year's event specifically?
Yes, Jessica. And, I'll say honestly, every year we put a lot of time and energy and hard work and love into the program. And since I mentioned love, I'm really excited about our keynote speaker this year. His name is Marcus Buckingham. He wrote a book called Love and Work. One of my core beliefs in life is, follow your passion, do what you're passionate about. That's why I work, what I do in the nutrition industry. I love sharing nutrition, and I know Dr. Peake's going to talk about that because we have the same vision about how can we bring nutrition to the rest of the world, to people, to change their lives for the better. So this year, I think our industry has a lot of love, but we're going to hear from a speaker whose thesis is that there needs to be more love in your work, more love in your life, more love in your organization. And he wrote a book called Love and Work, and he's one of the best keynote speakers we've ever had. So I'm super excited about that. We're also going to dive into women's health, because that's such an important topic and has become more so over the last few years. And I know Dr. Peeke and you are going to lead some great panels on that. We're also diving into Ayurvedic medicine from India. I mean, many people don't realize that, they take ashwagandha or they take curcumin, and those are Ayurvedic supplements. And we've got raw material companies coming that are going to be diving into that, and we're going to size and talk about the potential of the Ayurvedic market. And then we have so many things. I mean, we do our state of the industry, which everybody loves every year with the latest data. Rick is going to do something, and he'll talk about it on Deshay. We didn't really want to go back and talk about the past and just without talking about the future. That's our theme. So, but Deshay, 30 years. I mean, a lot of people thought Deshay wasn't going to last 10 years, and 30 years later, we have a regulation that allows people to buy these supplements to change their health, and we're going to dive into the history of that. I think it's important to talk about the history and learn from it. So those are the things I'm really excited, and lots more. But that's and of course, all the networking is fantastic.
Well, I have to say, Tom, obviously we've been working hand in hand on putting the programming together, but you got me really excited about our programming all over again. I feel like I'm hearing it for the first time. I'm like, yes, this sounds amazing. I want to go. I will go. I'll be there. So good. Tom, thank you. Lots of really great topics. I also, you talked about networking. Of course, networking is such an important part of the NBJ Summit, and we'll be going to Catalina Island this year. So we basically have like a destination networking day at the summit. So that's a first-time experience that we'll be bringing to summit attendees that is just going to really reinforce how special those connections are that people make at the summit. And we're getting really creative with how people can do that this year. So outside of all the great programming, we have some really unique ways that people will be able to connect. So Tom, before I move over, and Rick, I have some questions for you about NBJ and what you're working on there, as well as some of your panels at the summit. Before I do that, Tom, anything else that you want to mention for people maybe who haven't attended the summit before? How can they do that?
Yes. Well, let me just say one thing about this Catalina Island trip. We try to raise the bar, as you know, Jessica, every year, and we are not afraid of taking some risks. So we are going to take basically the entire summit is invited to come on this trip. And the reason we're doing that, I mean, we're data people, right? So we ask people every year, what do you want to get out of the summit? Why did you come? And as much work as we put into the content, I think the content's great. It's the connections that people make, the lifelong connections and the networking that's done at a very deep level. And 65% of the people say we come for the networking. So we're going to lean in on that this year and find unique ways to do it. So if you're interested in coming to the summit, I hope this doesn't sound too promotery. I mean, we will be sold out. We've been sold out every year for the last 7 years, usually by the middle of June or the end of June for sure. I think there's like 52 seats left, and we do cap it. So if you're interested and you're a C-level executive or a leader in the industry, and you're running a department or running a division of a big company, you're more than welcome to come. I think we'll put the link in the chat, and then you can just go to the link there, or you can just email, believe it or not, just email me or Jessica at our email addresses. I'm at tom@nutritionadvisors.com, and Jessica, what's your email?
Rubino@newhope.com, and we can put
Okay.
those in the
So we'll put that in the chat.
Reach out to us. And then in addition to the on-site event, everyone is welcome to attend our virtual event. So we have a link that we'll put in the chat as well, where you can tune in and get all the programming virtually, as well as make connections with others who are attending NBJ Summit. So we have our on-site registration as well as our virtual registration that we'll make available to everyone. So thank you, Tom.
Yeah, the virtual event's open to anybody, and it's a chance to get, a lot of people want the content, and some of the attendees come and they want their people to come. So the virtual event is a way we've had that request. How can we get access to the content? So I'll stop talking, pass it back to you. Thank you, Jessica, for having me today. I look forward to seeing everybody in July. Thank you.
We love your passion, Tom. I'm glad you started with talking about love, because you're one of the people who loves what you do kind of more than anyone I know. So I love that about you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, Rick. Now, Rick Polito, also a wonderful force within our New Hope and NBJ world. Rick, our fearless leader of Nutrition Business Journal, and you are tirelessly working to illuminate some of the most important issues in the dietary supplement industry. Rick, welcome. Can you talk about some of the issues that you're covering on the journal side of things, as well as bringing to the stage of NBJ Summit this year?
Well, right now we're getting ready to publish our condition-specific issue, and that's one of my favorite issues. It's where it's where this all gets applied. There's a lot of general health that people out there understand that they could get from eating well and exercising, but there's conditions that are really important that the supplement industry can support. So that's what we're working on in the journal. I think for Summit, I always talk about it as the conversation starts on stage. And that's what we work so hard on programming, as Tom has suggested, but people are there to connect with each other. So I think the conversation starts up there, and then, happens out in the hall, happens at dinner, happens up at the bar at night. And I think that's really the part, that's conversation and connection, that's so special about NBJ Summit. Now, what I really like this year is we're sort of orchestrating that a little bit, where we're breaking out in the afternoon into, quadrants at corners of the ballroom to talk about these issues, and we're pulling out the whiteboards and really hashing some things out. And that's what I'm really excited about. It's a sort of the spontaneity of conversation and different ideas that you're not going to get in one company's boardroom, but you might get all these people coming together and, maybe not solve it, but point a direction of solving some of these, major issues like counterfeits, like all the crazy information that's going on social media that's not always correct. And, pulling together how we, come as an industry, come together as NBJ Summit does, and figure some stuff out. So it's really that conversation that starts on stage and continues out in the lobby and up in the bar. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I'm glad you brought that up, because we are really excited to have some workshopping opportunities to, bring people together and really dig into some of those topics. You mentioned a few that I think are really important. Of course, everyone is wondering how they can apply AI to their businesses in a way that's responsible, do it the right way. Technology is a big force right now. Also, communication strategies. How do we effectively communicate the mission and the quality behind dietary supplements to consumers in a world where there is so much misinformation, and we are seeing all of these, kind of competing forces of how we communicate effectively. So it's really exciting to see the ways that we're going to be bringing the community together to really dig in. And Rick, I'm also excited about some of the sessions that you have planned around DSHEA. Again, not just to talk about what DSHEA was or is, but really what it means for the future. And one of those sessions is going to look at some of the future leaders of the industry. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, we wanted to, as you said, we don't want to go into the history and kind of repeat, because people know the story of DSHEA, at least the people in this room. I think outside, they don't know. I mean, my wife thought DSHEA was a person, and it's kind of a cool name. But within that room, we all know where it came from, and we know the efforts that went into it. But right now, we want to talk about sort of, well, there's two pieces of the DSHEA panel, two panels that I'm working on. And one is sort of not just like, let's talk about opening it up, but what are the risks of not opening it up? And I think that's important about how it's, how this is aged, not just how the Deshay is held up, but how have we lived up to it. And then there's another part where we're going to talk about sort of across generations, where someone who was there, who was in the room when it happened, talking to two people who are looking at different movements or efforts, one being, how hemp CBD has stalled out legislatively, and the other one talking, which is not a supplement thing, but psychedelics, where can they sort of harness the movement that made Deshay work, and where, how does Deshay translate into these challenges today? So I think that's what I really try to do with these sessions, is not repeat the history and not go over, why it matters or what it was, but why it matters today and what it says about the challenges that the industry faces now.
Thanks so much, Rick. And I think your unique perspective on how you think about that and bring community and industry voices together to talk about it in a different way is really exciting. So I'm looking forward to those sessions. Anything else, Rick, that you're particularly excited about for this year's event?
Catalina Island. Let's see. We have little adventures during the day, but this is a whole day of people together, and it's, what better way to connect than, a voyage. It's more than a 3-hour cruise. So let's get out there and have a conversation and connection, and just, that's where it's all these sort of memories that you have of Summit are not the memories of what's on stage, is no matter how hard we work, it's the memories of how you come together. And what's better than a trip to Catalina Island for that? I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick. And for those who are just joining us, I know some people just hopped on this LinkedIn Live. We're giving you a behind the scenes look at the NBJ Summit this year. If you're interested in learning more on how to register for either the in-person event or the virtual event, Tom and I have our email addresses in the chat, so you can see those right there in the chat. There's also a link to the full programming of the summit this year, so you can see everything that we have planned. One of those amazing things that we have planned is a presentation from Dr. Pamela Peeke, who is joining us today. Dr. Peeke, thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. And wow, talk about timely. I just got off the line with a director from Hollywood who is doing a new docuseries on women's health. Who knew? I mean, Netflix. And it's going to be amazing. And so I'll be participating. But on the heels of that, we have Alyssa Milano, the actress, who is doing another documentary series on perimenopause, a word that didn't even exist about 6 years ago. Women sort of fell off the face of the earth at the age of 40 and then reemerged at the age of 52. And in between, you're on your own until we finally got some very good research to help women navigate that whole time. So it's just an amazing time. And that's why I congratulate you at the summit for recognizing the timeliness of all of this, because women are seeking solutions. And I got news for you. They want natural.
Well, you're speaking my language here, Dr. Peeke. You're getting me all riled up, but it's so amazing to see this revolution, around research and leadership and just awareness, public awareness of women's health. What's causing all of this? What's creating this momentum, do you think?
Gwyneth Paltrow and all of her friends. They're all moving and transitioning into menopause and postmenopause, and they're not doing this quietly. And what they say is, I have a lot of money, I have a lot of power, give me some solutions here. And if the solutions don't exist, then they're going to find them one way or the other, or they're going to create them. And so it's created a stir. Suddenly you have a lot of key opinion leaders really speaking their minds now. They're not quiet about it anymore. If there's a problem, they're going to tell you. And I think that that's really important, because that didn't exist before. And I think that now that we have new research that so many of these celebrities and others are now calling upon, well, that's now they're locked and loaded, armed and dangerous with lots of great data to be able to help drive this. I'm an internist with a subspecialty in critical care, and my clinical investigator work was all done at the National Institutes of Health. So I'm a hardcore scientist. I was also there when the Office of Dietary Supplements popped up, as well the Office of Women's Research. I just have a thing about timing, and as you put all of that together, I started seeing momentum. Something was going on here, and it was all trending toward we need some answers for the unique situation as it applies to women's hormonal journey, for instance, let alone what happens with sleep, let alone what happens with energy, and some of the medical conditions that are specific to women, like anxiety, for instance. Like 30 to 1, it's going to be a woman for a host of physiologic reasons. Where are the solutions? Where are the natural solutions? This was something I dreamed about for years as I yelled and screamed and ranted and raved and said, we need to be addressing these issues. Enough is enough. Well, guess what? We're going to do that at the summit.
Yes. Well, Dr. Peeke, thank you so much for giving us just a little snapshot of what you're going to be talking about the summit. And absolutely, this idea of talking about the solutions. I mean, this is the community that is developing these solutions from the product formulation standpoint and leadership and how we're, redefining the nutrition and supplement world. And so to get in front of all of these industry leaders who are increasingly women leaders, which is another important part of the equation, is going to be such a powerful part of the event. So as Tom had alluded to, we have women's health as a really important focal point for this year's event. On Thursday, August 1st, we have Dr. Peeke presenting. We also have Muriel Gonzalez, who is the president of the Vitamin Shop, and then a powerhouse panel of women leaders and founders of companies that are really driving some of these changes in the marketplace. So we're going to be talking about everything from innovation in women's health to consumer demand and what's changing and driving some of that. So Dr. Peeke, you gave us a little bit of background on who you are and what you do, but can you expand a little bit on some of your work and how you're going to bring those insights to NBJ this year?
I wear a number of hats. I'm actually a Wall Streeter as well. So I've advised the same private equity group for the last 25 years, sat on boards. I have a real finger into, for instance, nutrition, because we invest in that in a big way. So it's been an eye-opener. And at the same time, I do multimedia to be able to message this. I was the chief medical correspondent for Discovery Health Television for years before Oprah took it over. And then on and on with education, as I'm on faculty at the Harvard University, the Institute of Coaching. So really trying to learn to message to leaders all over the world in a big way. But, at the heart of it all, I'm a physician. And as a physician, we talk about holistic integrative medical care. Yeah, well, what's part of that? I'm an athlete, so on the board of the American College of Sports Medicine. So as a triathlete, I practice what I preach. But what about nutrition? Where is that? It's still not in the medical curriculum, not just for physicians, but also for nurses and others. We need to keep pushing this. This is terribly important. And if anything, the pandemic taught people a lot about what nutrition, the importance of nutrition in a big way. Now we need to integrate that information and message that to people everywhere. People are seeking these solutions, and what they don't want to do is pop medicines. I think there's a whole trending away from that. The traditional medical model, as it were, when you could really address this with healthy lifestyle choices, and nutrition is paramount among them.
We could not agree more. And Rick, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm looking at you because we have the NBJ Women's Health Report that we released earlier this year. And I'm curious, as you're listening to Dr. Peeke, I'm sure so much of what she's saying resonates. And we presented data on the category and some of the drivers of the category in that report. Are there any other things you want to add to that based on our NBJ research that we've been increasingly committing to around the women's health category?
Well, as you mentioned, we do have the report that sort of charts out the growth, where the opportunities are. I think a lot of what's going on is it's not just the innovation in ingredients, but in the marketing, the way people are talking about it. And that's what Dr. Peeke just spoke about some. It's just let's bring these out, and it's the new language for new generations, and it's sort of a new kind of a conversation that's happening. So I think that's what's really important. And now people are getting into it with sort of how to present that through practitioners, how to present the new science, how to guide this forward. So in some ways, this is kind of just getting started. All these issues that have gone on obviously forever are now getting this attention that could, guide a new market and new science and new products.
Yeah, it's funny, Rick. I feel like we've been talking so much about women's health that sometimes I'm like, are we talking too much about it? And I'm like, no, we're literally just getting started. We're just scratching the surface of this incredible industry that we're kind of just popping the lid off and exploring all the potential. Tom, any questions that you have? I know you always are full of questions for our presenters, so I want to give you the opportunity if you have questions for Dr. Peeke as well. Oh, and you're on mute, Tom.
Thank you. I do have a question. I can't wait to talk to Dr. Peeke in person. And what you just said about the the documentary, and I'm starting to see a ton of that stuff going on, like, biohacking stuff. And I was just at a board meeting myself for another private equity firm, and there was a woman there, and she was talking about the fact that she was with 6 of her friends, and they're all around 55 to 60, and they were all talking about those topics. And but what's interesting, Dr. Peeke, is that if you look at the data on, like, research, the amount of research going into women's health is so much lower now, yet there's so much potential. Could you talk about that? I mean, I know, like, you could say, well, you could look at that glass half empty and say, well, we need more research in women's health, or you could say, look at all the opportunity for research in women's health. And women buy 80% of all nutritional products. You probably knew that. They control the world. So.
Well, of course we control the world, and I thank you for agreeing with me. No, at the end of the day, remember, it's women who are buying it for their partners, for their kids, for the guy next door. And so women really are command central as a consumer within the nutrition sector in a big way. I think that, when you look at the whole issue of research, we're just trying to catch up. So when the Office of Women's Research was set up, this was under Dr. Bernadine Healy, who was the first and only woman to ever be director of the National Institutes of Health. And what had been happening prior to that, wipe the shock off your face, is that we took men's research and we just inferred for women. So the research wasn't even done. And when I got to the NIH, I listened to some of my colleagues, and they said, oh, we can't have a woman in, we can't have women in this particular clinical trial. They're complicated. And I said, really? What do you mean? They said, well, they have menstrual cycles, you just never know. And I said, really? Don't the rats and mice that you work with have menstrual cycles? They're called estrous cycles. Dead silence. So somehow you worked around the mice and the rats, but you can't work with women. So it was hysterical. So slowly but surely the paradigm, began to shift. And also Bernadine Healy made it very clear. And she said this loud and clear: not a dime from the National Institutes of Health to fund anything you're doing at your university if you don't include women where it's appropriate. Period. End of story. And
Wow.
this shook up the entire system. And all of a sudden, everyone had to actually sit down and go, wow, how unique are women? How do we include them in the next big fundraising that we're trying to get for our studies. So you see, you know, there were many steps to unpack here to be able to get to the point where we have better research. You know, even to this day, as I look at many of the companies now emerging to help women with, for instance, digital therapeutics. I think of Ember Labs with their wonderful little wearable to be able to help women with hot flashes. It's called the Wave. Well, nobody ever saw that before, and that was brand new science. But try to get funding for companies like that. For a long time, the answer was no, because there weren't enough people who got the message that this was important. Flash forward 10 years since the company started, it's number one, it's global, and now everyone's listening because women voted with their money. They came forward and paid for that digital therapeutic. Why? It's natural. I just use that as one example of what's going on. Now we look at nutrition, the same thing is happening.
Well, Dr. Thank you so much. We'll have a lot to talk about clearly at NBJ Summit, and we so appreciate you bringing some of those insights to us here today. There are so many exciting things happening, and your breadth of knowledge and experience in this area is so critical to the summit conversation. So thank you, Dr. Peeke. Thank you, Tom and Rick, for joining. And thanks everyone for being here. I know we had people popping in throughout. So again, the 27th annual NBJ Summit is happening this July 29th through August 1st at the beautiful Terranea Resort. We didn't even talk about the Terranea Resort, which is incredible. We have so much great programming. We have the link to the full agenda in the chat. If you have any questions about registering for the event on site or virtual, please reach out to us directly. And as you can tell, we have so much in store for this year's event. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dr. Peeke, Tom, Rick, and everyone have a wonderful rest of the day. This has been a lot of fun. That 30 minutes just flew by.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.